It's time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by PSE Archery,
Scentlock Technologies,
Scent Blocker,
Rambo Bikes,
Hunter's Blend Coffee,
Limwalker Game Calls,
Stanislawski Releases,
Copper John Sights,
Easy Cut Outdoor Products,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Wind Sense Hunting Sense,
X-Stand Tree Stands,
Spot Shooters,
Gut Check Indicators,
and Packermax Cultipackers. And don't forget, you can catch us in syndication at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on goodtalkradio.com. Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal, everybody. I'm host Mike Adams, sitting in a very warm cabin tonight on a Sunday evening with Dan DeFall.
Good evening, Mike. How are you?
I'm stuffed up.
You sounds like it.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of, you say a warm cabin.
Yeah.
Because yesterday saying, oh, today is going to be cold.
This weather stinks. I mean, I'm glad it's warm. Don't get me wrong.
I'd like to pay due justice to the weathermen. Blew it.
Right.
But what an interesting weekend.
It has been very interesting as far as the weather goes. But speaking of warm, we got warm beverages tonight. Tell the good people what we got.
You know what? There's nothing better to start off our show than with Hunter's Blend Coffee. And remember, if you go to huntersblendcoffee.com, and if you check out and use our promo code, capital UNJ, as you can see in the bottom
right below my finger,
left-hand part of the screen, you get an extra 10% off.
That's right.
So go check them out. Right now, I'm going through the black powder.
And?
It's good. I'm not going to lie. It's smooth. This coffee is smooth.
Give you a little jump in the morning?
Oh, of course. I have my 2 cups on the way to work, ready to go.
Right. Well, that's what I'm drinking tonight. Try to get my throat somewhat to where I can talk tonight. So
good.
But for those on the live stream, we do have a poll up. So click on that, and towards the end of the show, we'll see where we stand. Talking a little fishing tonight.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
That is. We're going to talk a lot of fishing because even though we do a little hard water fishing, most fishing is done in the summer.
That's right.
So, without further ado, how about we bring in our special guest?
All right.
None other than Ken Scicluna from Southern Michigan. We won't give away his exact location because we don't want people flocking to him to find out all his fishing secrets.
That's right. They're gonna be following him to the lake.
Right.
How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing real good, guys. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Hey, not a problem, man. It looks like you got the sunshine behind you. Things looking good there down in Southern Michigan.
Yeah, it's a beautiful warm night here. Well, warmish night. You got a nice breeze going, and I'm just sitting out in the boat and getting ready to talk some fishing.
Right on.
And before we get into talking to fishing, we want to let people know that we're also going to bring Ken on as an editor of the page, and he's going to join us, and he's going to be posting stuff from now until whenever, and then so look for him more on the page.
Yeah,
posting about his fishing, and when we get closer to hunting, about hunting. So welcome aboard, Ken.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to that. I've followed you guys are one of the first outdoor podcast I ever listened to when I even discovered podcasts. So I've been a fan of the show for a long time, and I just appreciate the opportunity to help contribute. And I love this stuff, and I can sit and talk hunting and fishing for a long time. So really looking forward to it.
Excellent. And why don't you give everybody a little bit of your background now? Tell us, married, not married, what you've been doing, how long you've been hunting, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I'm married. We have my beautiful wife, Joy, and we have a 2.5-year-old boy, Franklin, and we're hoping to get him into the outdoors. And, I've been fishing. My dad has taken me fishing, started taking me fishing from shore since I could walk, basically. And it just grew from there. And my uncle, we fished every weekend. All spring and summer, and I had some uncles that bow hunted, and I got into hunting that way. And then, once I turned 18 and moved out of the house and started doing my own thing, it just really ramped up from there. And the next thing you knew, there's a boat, and I'm doing tournaments, and it's a real obsession. I'm primarily a bass fisherman now, but it wasn't that long ago where I just fished for everything. Anything that would bite, I wanted to fish for. And,
right on.
But right now I'm really, and I still like that, but right now I'm just really into I'm a competitive person by nature, and the bass tournaments, I just love it. It's forced me to become a better fisherman. I feel like the days of going out and getting skunked are over, and that's thanks to, forcing myself to fish against guys that are, a lot better than me. A lot of the guys I fish against are so much better than me at figuring out these fish. And I go up against them week in and week out all summer long, and it's made a world of difference for me.
That's awesome. Now, besides fishing, do a little hunting as well?
Yeah. I am a whitetail fanatic. I always joke that, I'm just kind of bass fishing passes the time until hunting season. My real passion is bow hunting, is deer hunting. I think about deer hunting 24/7, 365. It's, like they always say, that it's always deer hunting season. That cannot be more true for me. I hunt a lot of public ground here in southern Michigan. I have a few private land spots as well. But yeah, I love deer hunting. Words really can't describe how much I love it. And I do some turkey hunting. I didn't get a chance to do too much of it this past season, but man, I love turkey hunting. It's a great pastime. I've been doing that for the past 7 or 8 years. But yeah, boy, do I ever love to bow hunt for deer.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about bow hunting for deer. I'm the same way, man. It's the one thing that just drives me 365 days a year. Of course, if you guys listen to the show, everybody knows that,
right?
Yeah.
You know, Ken, when did you get your start in hunting? Were you a younger kind of guy started in hunting, or were you a little older?
Well, this is a little embarrassing to admit, but my mom and dad probably aren't watching, but my parents wouldn't allow me to hunt. They were anti-hunting.
Okay. Interesting.
But I always wanted. My uncles hunted, and I remember just spending every holiday or every birthday party, and I would just corner my uncles and listen to their bow hunting stories, probably all through my teen years, and just get psyched about it. And as soon as I, was out on my own, which is right after high school, I went out and I bought a bow and I started bow hunting, and it just took off from there. I was basically self-taught and been pretty much doing it the hard way on public ground down here, and it just snowballed from there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I started at 18.
That's interesting. The parents were against hunting, and then you turned around and you went against your parents' wishes and you went and bought a bow.
I did. Yeah, I knew I was. And it took me 3 years, and I finally shot my first deer with a bow on state ground. And boy, was that ever the best. That was the best feeling in the world. And then it really took off from there once I realized, hey, I can do this. It was great. And, even now older, my parents, they know that I'm obsessed with it, and they're fine with it. It was just, at that time, their house, their rules, and I wasn't going to do it, But now I do it all the time.
But I bet your uncles were proud of you.
Yes. Yep. They sure are.
That is cool.
Yep.
So right now you're kind of, from what I understand, tournament season, fishing season is in full swing right now. And that started a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So where are you at with that?
Well, I've catch and release bass fishing is now legal in Michigan, immediate release. So I've been out fishing on the water since April, but tournament fishing just started Memorial Day weekend, and I fished one Tuesday night event last Tuesday. Did not do well. Only caught one fish, and I was on Kent Lake over here in the Metro Park. That was a really tough tournament, but, that lake gets a lot of guys. It's a tough lake. It's very bipolar. You can have your best day ever in the world out there or your worst day ever. And I was right there with one fish. And I haven't been able to fish a Saturday event, which the Saturday events are 8-hour events. Mm-hmm. And I fish there's many different bass clubs here in southern Michigan. And I got one coming up this Saturday on the Portage chain. And everything's ramping up. I fish every Tuesday night. We go to a different lake each week, and they're 3-hour events from 6 to 9. I call them dog fights. And you go out there and you battle it out with the fish for 3 hours, and you bring back your 5 biggest, and you weigh them. And there's usually 1 or 2 payouts at least, sometimes 3 or 4, depending how many boats show up. And then the Saturday events are 8-hour events. And same thing, you bring back your 5 biggest fish and you weigh them, and it's a lot of fun. There's good camaraderie at the ramp. I've made a lot of new friends with the tournaments. For the most part, all the tournament guys are really good guys, and it's just been it's been a lot of fun. And like I said, it forces you to get better as a fisherman.
Now, are you primarily? I mean, I was just showing a couple photos there. Are you primarily a bass fisherman?
Yeah. I'm primarily a bass fisherman. Like I said, I started out fishing for everything, but I'd say the past 5 years I've been 100% a bass fisherman. I do not have any interest in anything else right now at all. I've just fish for bass. Yep.
Okay.
That's awesome. And that's one of the things that you've kind of turned into a specialty. Now you're out bass fishing, but how often do you catch something other than a bass?
Oh yeah, I could talk about that too. It's so funny. 10 years ago, if I were to catch a 30-inch northern pike, I would have been driving it around to all my buddies' house, showing them. And now I get so aggravated when I catch a pike. If you want to become a good pike fisherman, start fishing for bass in the deep weeds in the lake. You will be a good pike fisherman. I mean, they're an annoyance, really. I'm usually not too impressed unless they're over 35. But man, we catch a lot of pike.
See, and that's kind of funny you mentioned that about if it was over 30, you'd be parading it around. But now that you're primarily a one species fisherman, everybody looks at you and goes, "You're catching the wrong fish."
Right.
Yes. Oh man, especially when you set the hook and you're just like, oh, it feels like a good one, and then I can tell immediately. Usually a bass is going to start coming for the surface pretty quickly, and the bass will just dive, or the pike will dive, and a lot of times swim off to the side. And I usually know within the first 10 seconds it's a pike, and sure enough, they're hard to deal with on the boat. You waste time. They got all the hooks caught in them, and it's just a mess. So we catch a lot of pike. It's an annoyance, especially when you're in a tournament and there's money on the line. But when they get to be over 35 inches, I don't mind catching them.
Right, exactly, and that's the thing. It's like, well, it's really a cool fish, but when you're in the midst of a tournament, you're working a 3-hour time zone.
Quit wasting my time.
Right.
Yes. You want it gone.
And you get one that's in that area. It's not just a quick reel into the boat usually, right?
No, and you got to be careful because you almost a lot of times you have to net them because they're going they'll bite your line off. I mean, I use 50-pound braid, 65-pound braid. They cut through that like nothing. And, you got to be real careful with them because you don't want them to break your line. And then half the time you have to retie anyway because I always inspect my line after I catch pike to make sure they didn't nick it. And because, that you don't want that to cost you a bass down the road later in the day. And, it's a whole time consuming thing to catch them. I mean, I hate to sound like that because I know a lot of guys go out for pike. And that's great, but man, when you're in a bass tournament, it's the last fish you want to see.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I brought it up because I know yourself and hearing these other guys are, typically they'd be like, "Whoa, that's awesome," but no, I don't want it. Go away.
Go away.
Yes, and that's the thing. Like I was saying about tournaments, fish and bass tournaments, it has honestly, being on a boat, having a little bit of decent electronics. I really feel like it has made me a better all-around fisherman. Like, yeah, I target bass, but I feel so confident now. Like, if I wanted to go out and catch pike, I could do that. If I wanted to go out and catch a limit of bluegills or 15 to 20 bluegills in the heat of the summer, like, I know how to do that now.
you can do it. So
it's
and then like you said, getting your primary ramping up for bass and everything. But but to get out in the water, you gotta get on your boat. But to do that, you gotta get your boat ready. So we're coming up to a break. How about when we come back? Let's start from the basics of your boat and work up to when you're heading out for the tournaments and talk about it.
Awesome, sounds good.
All right, we'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has reinvented the way you buy bows.
From now on, you can make the most educated decision possible
by basing your bow choice specifically on your shooting needs and goals.
All you need to do is ask yourself, what kind of shooter am I? What do I want to achieve?
PSE will help find the right category for you.
So, what kind of shooter are you?
Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back. Second segment of the show. Sitting here talking with Ken Scicluna down in southern Michigan. No, I'm not going to give away where he lives so you can follow him to his fishing hole.
Exactly. But we are going to talk about when he is out on the water, he's got to be on a boat.
Well, he's on his boat right now.
I don't think he can walk out.
I'm on it right now, yeah.
Yeah, he's sitting out there right now. I got a couple pictures of how he's got his boat set up. So,
Ken, about coming, we'll start when it's nice and cold and there's a bunch of hard water out on Michigan, which could have been last week. But when do you start thinking about the boat, what you're going to do with the boat, when you're going to break it out and get it ready? When does that start thinking in your mind?
It's for me. Just because I've been dealing with boats long enough to know that those marinas, because I always have my boat shrink wrapped and I have the marina winterize it and everything. So late February, I'm watching the weather close to see if there's going to be an early ice out. But even if there's not an early ice out, I'm usually taking the boat in to get the shrink wrap off and get the spring prep done. I want it in there the first week of March. That way I get it back usually within a week, no problem. I know the boat they make sure the motor is running fine, everything. And now, as April rolls on, they start getting really flooded big time. And I don't want to be waiting for my boat, especially in the month of May when the fishing's starting to get real hot. So I have it in there the first week of March. And, I get my boat back in a week, and I'm ready to go as soon as ice out hits.
And what kind of boat is it?
This is a 14.5-foot G3 aluminum. I have a 25-horse Yamaha on the back and a 45-pound thrust Minn Kota on the front. It's been a good boat. We've had it for 6 or 7 years now. I'm probably going to sell it this winter and buy an actual bass boat. I think the time has come for that. And but this boat is, it gets the job done. A little bit of a disadvantage because I can only go so fast and do so many things in it. But it's been a good little boat. It's got everything I need, live well, everything.
Right, like you said, you got a 25 horse on the back of that.
Yep.
Oh, you got to at least increase to what, a 150, 250s on the back, like the big bass guys.
Yeah, I'm looking for 150 minimum, but 200 would be preferred because I don't know if you guys have ever been on a bass boat on a 200 horsepower motor, but it's pretty awesome when you're up on plane.
Yeah. They fly. They just flat out fly.
Yes.
And that's got to be the big thing, getting to the spots where you want to catch the fish at. The guys that get there first get first dibs.
Yeah, exactly, especially in like a 3-hour tournament. In a 3-hour tournament, those guys can fish 10, 15 spots a night, which can help or hurt you. That's not necessarily a good thing, but it can help you in certain cases. In a 3-hour derby, I'm usually limited to 1 to 3 areas, so I really got to be on them and know what I'm doing right off the bat, or I'm kind of behind the 8 ball. But I'm not making excuses at all there. I've had my fair share of success in 3-hour tournaments. I'm just simply saying that I don't have that option to run every single good spot in the lake. I'm kind of committed.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the way you get your boat set up, is it set up basically for a 2-man tournament, 2 men in a boat?
Yeah, 2-man in a boat. It's like a 600-pound capacity. So, 2 guys can fit in here pretty comfortably. I mean, that's another thing about being a bass fisherman. We're way overboard. I mean, I run 20 rods on the boat. My co-angler usually has 15 to 20 rods. To mountains of tackle, but we make it work, But it's we have it fully loaded on tournament day.
Okay, I'm going to ask a stupid question. You just talk about all the rods that you got. Why so many rods in a boat at one time? I mean, I can understand having a couple extra, but explain to me why you need that many.
Well, when you're a bass junkie, and you want to win tournaments real bad, everything matters. Everything's very rod, reel, line specific to the lure you want to throw.
Okay.
Especially when you really get down to the nitty gritty. I mean, you really want to have the right stuff. That's just going to make you more efficient. And the more efficient you can be with what the bait you're throwing, just the more efficient you are. And there's less time. Like now I don't have to switch. I don't have to stop, cut, retie.
Gotcha.
I've got everything right there at my disposal. Maybe even a backup or two. If a pike busts me off or something, I can just grab another rod real quick and keep. Especially if you're on them and you got a school of fish fired up and they're in that feeding frenzy mode. You don't want to be wasting time retying or switching baits or whatever. You just want to be able to keep fishing because when you got them going, you got to take advantage of that. And I'm pretty anal about I want to make sure I'm using the right rod and line and reel for the bait I'm using, which is a whole Pandora's box to get into that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, that you're in a 3-hour tournament, so those few added seconds to a minute of retying one rod to another, I think you're looking to use that as a extra cast or two.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it has helped before, and it's just, hey, who am I kidding? I love buying tackle.
Right.
I love looking down and seeing 20 rods on my boat.
There you go. What kind of electronics you running on that boat?
Now I run. I don't have anything fancy what I want, but I do have a Humminbird 598. I have all the goodies. I have side scan, down scan, GPS, the typical 3D sonar. So I have everything the other guys have. I just have a much smaller screen. The definition isn't as good. There's a lot of different features. What the stuff they're coming out with now is absolutely mind-blowing, incredible. But you're talking, some of them units are up to $2,000 just for one. And so it's pretty pricey. But this one I got, it gets the job done for me. And boy, I wish I had something nicer. But, really, like I said, it's got everything you need to do what you got to do out there. So I would like to have one on the front deck and one at the console. Right now, I just got one at my console.
Okay, so let me ask you this: when you're out with on the boat with your partner, you're in a tournament.
Yeah.
Who gets the front of the boat and who gets the rear of the boat?
I typically get the front of the boat, but I'm not there's been a lot of times where I have, there's enough room for the co-angler to come up here and fish on the front deck with me. Or if I'm on a lake where the co-angler knows what the deal is, I'll give the boat up in a heartbeat. Or there's been a couple times where I've fished with guys that are really the top echelon anglers that are really good. They just need a boat to fish on. I 100% give the boat up to them and let them do their thing because I want to watch them and learn what they're doing. I'd be more than happy to let someone like that run my boat. Just so I can learn, and I've had that opportunity a couple times.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering who was kind of spying the electronics and wondering.
Oh, no, so you mean like who's
watching the electronics and then, obviously the guy in the back of the boat, right?
Well, no, I turn the electronics and face it towards me because it rotates 360. And I just kind of tell the guy in the back, and the guys I fish with, I've been fishing with for a while now. So they know my spots. They know how I like to fish, which is typically out deep. I very rarely fish the shoreline. I'm usually out in the deeper grass, and they know what the deal is. And I'm pretty good at telling them, like, okay, there's a patch of grass here or a flat here we're casting on. And if they want to look at it, I'm more than I turn it around and they look at it. They know what's going on.
Okay, yep. I was just wondering if you're the captain of the boat, so you.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely good. Now I will say this, and I learned this early on. Like there definitely needs to be a captain in tournaments. I mean it's a team effort, but like somebody has to have a plan and a purpose, and this is what we're doing. Now if things start to fall apart. Don't get me wrong. I will turn to what do you think? What are we going to do here once my plan falls apart? Or we'll kind of talk about it. If the other guy feels real strongly, like, hey man, we should go run docks first thing this morning. We'll do that. I'm pretty easygoing. I'm not the type of guy that's going to be too arrogant and say my way or the highway. Because, like I said, actually, one of the couple of the co-anglers I have, they are better fishermen than me, and they probably should be running the boat. And I'm not, I'm nowhere near in a position to, to be like that. But I try to have a plan and a direction in the morning, in the morning or in the evening when we go out, and try to stick to it.
And with the boat, you got the trailer. Anything special about the trailer?
No, just a lot of problems.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, I burn through a tire every year. I had to replace the boat bunks, and lights going out and off and on. And there's always something. It's one thing about these boats, man, is they're maintenance. They're just they take up a lot of your time, which I try to save money and do a lot of it myself. But there's always something to fix or do with them trailers. But yeah, it's just a basic trailer,
Okay.
Nothing special.
It typically when you say boat, to me it just means bust out another 1,000.
Yes.
Which is no lie, correct?
It's not a lie. Yeah.
Right.
I've definitely. Yeah. I mean, I probably spent $1,000 in tires over 7 years.
Right.
Just in
Exactly.
tires.
I used to have a 19-foot, and it was like every year. After a while, it just got to the point. It was like, you know what? I've had enough of this.
Had enough of this.
Yes.
Yep. So, but no, that's awesome. You got your boat, you got your trailer, everything's going good.
Yeah.
From there, we got to start talking about what do you get into for bait? Crankbaits. What do you like to use or anything like that?
Well, let's go ahead and take a break right now.
Okay.
When we come back, let's talk a little bit about baits and how you run out there when you're out on the water. So
sounds good.
Okay, we're going to step outside and we'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has always dominated the speed category. Now, the most revolutionary cam system ever to hit the market has perfected the shooting experience. Introducing PSE's Evolve Cam System, featuring extremely high let-off capabilities and the smoothest draw cycle in history. No other cam system has ever delivered this level of total comfort and total control. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Third segment of the show. Okay, we went to break. We had to give him a second. He had to recharge the battery here, but we got him back on. He's back in the boat and up and running. So we're going to talk about baits.
Yeah, what's your, like, where do you start off with as far as, do you do the crankbait thing? You do the worms? Kind of let us know what you're doing.
I do. I try to be very versatile and fish everything. And I have my strengths. But, one of the most basic things I do when I'm in trouble, or if it's a post-frontal day and the fish aren't biting too good, and this is really a basic thing. A lot of people have seen it. It's no secret whatsoever. It's used a lot in the tournament scene, too. It's just a worm, plastic worm, a straight tail, Senko type worm. You can rig it wacky style with the hook right through the middle. That's what I like to do. You can Texas rig it, weightless, or with a bullet weight that slides up and down the line. And sometimes what I've been doing lately, the past summer, is I got a little nail weight that you can buy, and you jam that up the back side of it, and you can fish it in deeper water, and you can fish it a little bit faster. So this is a go-to bait for a lot of bass fishermen, especially when the bite is tough. It's bailed me out many, 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 many times in a tournament. And if you're just wanting to go out and catch some bass, this will do it. Even on the days they're biting, they're hammering it too. I mean, it's a great bait. It's pretty much good spring, summer, and fall. You can't go wrong with it.
Colors?
Straight. I like in our Michigan waters. It's always best to stay natural. Green pumpkin blue. If the darker, the dirtier the water, you can go brighter, chartreuse, orange, stuff like that. And on the clear water lakes, you want to keep real natural colors. Green pumpkin. I like the greens, the blues, blacks and blues. But I'm really a green pumpkin blue guy. I keep it really simple. I don't fish a whole lot of bluegill. Anything that looks like a bluegill. Anything that looks like a bluegill or a crayfish. That's the color I'm using.
Okay. All right. So you're trying to mimic something.
Yeah. I mean, match the hatch. You hear it time again, and it couldn't be truer for bass fishing. And but pretty much green pumpkin and green pumpkin blue. Like the crankbait, like the square bill crankbait, for instance. You know what I mean? It's a neon bluegill. I don't know. You can see it looks pretty good, pretty bluegill colored. It's a square bill crankbait. This is another bait that has bailed me out. It's a shallow diving crankbait. The square bill deflects off of weeds and wood and rocks really well. So this is another go-to of mine. They'll eat it, and it looks just like a little bluegill. And for me, what I have found in our Michigan, this is not true all over the state, or even definitely not all over the country, but in these lakes down here, these weed-choked southern Michigan lakes, if you're fishing a crankbait and you are not constantly picking grass off of your bait, you're not fishing it right.
Oh, okay. So picking off the little weed pike is a good thing.
Yeah, if you're not fishing your crankbait in grass, you're not doing it right. You're not going to get as many bites. And I will try to ram that thing into a clump of weeds if I have to, and that usually will do the trick for me. If I'll take that bait and I'll drive it right into a clump of grass, and I'll try to rip it out real hard. Usually when I'm ripping it out is when I get bit. And so that's my only little tip is if, these lakes down here, if you're fishing a crankbait, you're not constantly having to pick grass off your bait. You're not doing it right.
What about these this one rig that I see, and I can't remember what the name of it is, but I bought one. It's got the one, and it's got it mimics like a little school of fish right behind it.
The Alabama rig?
Okay, sure. I can't remember the name of it, but it's got 4 on there, and it's supposed to be all minnows, and you cast that out. You ever use those?
I have used it, not too much success. I have several buddies that love it and do real well with it. It's a very specialized thing. It actually works so well around the country, they've outlawed it on professional bass tours. You cannot use it.
Really?
And they consider it cheating. Yeah. But yeah, it's called the Alabama rig. and it's very effective, especially on smallmouth up north. From what I've seen, I have not experienced that personally, but yeah, you can. It mimics a little mini school of emerald shiners or something like that up, especially up north. And there are many videos of Mark Zona fishing that thing all over the Grand Traverse area and just nailing giant smallmouth on it.
It works on pike. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, I bet it does.
It does. Up in the UP, it works on pike.
I bet it does, yeah.
So they have outlawed it. Outlawed something called Alabama. Imagine that.
It's so good they couldn't stand it.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Alabama is like the mecca for bass fishing. So.
That's right.
One of them. Gunnersville.
Gunnersville, yeah. I'm not too far from there is where I was born.
Nice. So, yeah, that's the worm, the crankbait. Also another little bait. I don't know if you've ever heard of the drop shot rigging system. It's basically a little weight on the bottom, and then you have a hook tied about a foot or 15 inches above the weight, and the hook sticks out horizontally. And hold on, let me block this call. Okay, I'm back. And you got the hook sticking out horizontally, and you just use like a little minnow bait like that, and you just kind of it's a really finesse type of way to fish. It mimics a little worm or a little minnow, and it's called the drop shot. There's tons of YouTube videos, but this has bailed me out many times too. It's very finessey. You can fish it. When the fish are down on the bottom, they want something, not so flashy, just a little tiny piece of plastic like that. And I can't tell you how many 30-plus inch pike I've caught on this tiny little bait right here. A lot. Pike love that for some reason. And then, of course, you can also Texas rig, a crawfish-looking bait like that, Texas rig it. And I also use it as a jig trailer. Now, this right here, what I'm about to show you, has totally changed the way I bass fish for the better. Once you learn how to fish a jig like that with a little crayfish trailer, you learn how to fish that in grass, and it's going to change the way you bass fish. You got to learn how to fish it. You're not going to get as many bites, but once I started throwing this bait is when I started catching a whole lot more 3 and 4 pound bass. Really? I shied away from it for a long time, but once I committed to it, it changed the game for me.
Now, do you only catch bass on that, or do you catch something else? Anything else on that?
You catch pike on it. It's probably the greatest pike lure ever made. Is the bass jig. I mean, they absolutely annihilate it, and pike love it. I've lost many jigs to pike, many jigs to pike, and last but not least, this is probably my other favorite way to fish. Once I learned how to do this is when I learned how to start catching real big ones. I use 50 pound braided line, a 1 ounce tungsten weight, a big giant flipping hook, and a crayfish looking bait. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's got a big flipping hook, big 1 ounce tungsten weight. It's got a bobber stop there where it's pegged. I throw this bait where the average fisherman would not even think about throwing a bait. Matted up vegetation where you see big mats of vegetation offshore, lily pad fields. You can punch right through the mat and get under the canopy with that, or big submerged clumps of grass. You throw I'm throwing it right into the heart of the grass. And it's hooked weedless, so you can come just in and out of that grass really simple. And this has really been a game changer for me, learning how to fish this in heavy cover where people would never even dream of throwing a bait, because that's where them big ones are. And especially if they're not real active, and you just slam this in front of their face and they can't resist it. And of course I'm using an 8-foot heavy action rod, a big winch reel, and heavy braided line. And it is so much fun to rip them out of the grass with. You just cross their eyes with this type of stuff. That hook right there is made for tuna fishing, and it's just a blast to catch them that way.
You're manhandling the fish is what you're doing.
You are just manhandling the fish right out of their home, and it's awesome. It's awesome. I love it. If I could catch them with that 100% of the time, that's what I do.
That's awesome.
There's nothing like it.
And one thing about that is the rubber worms and stuff that you just can't buy one, so you got to buy like a bag of
course,
and then you got to buy multiple colors, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my buddy actually pours that bait out of his garage, so I go over there when I can, and I'll buy 30 bags off him. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So, Tackle Warehouse has been not good for my budget either. So.
Man, that's funny. That's funny. You're that typical guy that goes in and you just can't buy one of it, so you're buying more of it. And
I know, it's so bad. It's so bad.
Well, we're looking at getting out on the water and tournament fishing and all the things you've been doing here, hitting it hard the last couple, 3, 4, 5 years. Where do you see things progressing towards? I mean, are you seeing more people like for these local tournaments? Are you seeing new people, or hunting? We're seeing dwindling numbers. It was fishing. How is that the numbers holding in fishing? Are we seeing an increase? Is it holding steady, or is it like hunting?
That's a great question, and honestly, bass fishing tournaments are exploding right now. The numbers are incredible, and it's mainly because of the high school. There's a lot of high school fishing teams now. The college, BASS and FLW do a lot with the college kids, college fishing teams. That is huge right now, especially down south. And here in Michigan, I got a buddy that fishes for Adrian. There's Western Michigan has a team. Michigan State has a team. The kids, the BASS and FLW has done a tremendous job of getting the youth involved. And we see, every tournament you see, there's a lot of youth getting involved in these tournaments. It's growing like crazy. Every year you see more and more boats, and it's really great to see because they have really secured the future of bass fishing with the high school. There's Heartland is state champs, and it's growing leaps and bounds, especially now that Major League Fishing has formed. Basically, I don't know if you guys know anything about that, but they've formed a whole nother major fishing league where they took all the big stars out of BASS and went to another league. So that allowed a whole new wave of anglers to come up into BASS. The whole thing is growing really fast.
I've seen a little bit of that on the Outdoor Channel. Not that I've followed it, but I'll sit back on a weekend when there's nothing going on or it's raining, and I was like, I'll tune in and watch and see if I can learn a little something. So that's what I was wondering, is how this is all progressing.
Yeah, it's progressing rapidly, very rapidly.
Speaking of progressing, I got to know, because you talked about people getting involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does the DNR show up at your boat launch?
They don't come to the weigh-ins per se, but as much time as I spend on the water, I deal with the DNR or the sheriff multiple times a summer. I'm constantly stopped. So I'm always, I always make sure my fire extinguisher is good. I can grab my life jackets and my throwable flotation device immediately, because that's what they want to see most of the time. They want to see your life jacket, and they want to see that you haven't been drinking. And once they see those two things, they're on their way.
Okay.
And but they don't really come to the weigh-ins.
Okay, I was just wondering if they, because once you think about it, you hear there's a tournament going on.
Yeah. Well, do they bother you during a tournament when you're on a time schedule and you've only got so much time? Have you ever been stopped during a tournament?
Oh yeah, I've been stopped during a tournament many times. But it's the law. Yeah, they're the law. They're law enforcement, and you do what they ask, and I deal with them, and they're all been really cool. Actually, they show them my license, and I say, hey, I'm in a bass tournament. And most of the time, once they hear you're in a bass tournament, they look at your license and let you go right away. They don't waste your time.
That's cool.
And and actually, all the bass tournaments in Michigan have to be registered with the DNR now. That's a new thing over the past couple of years. So the DNR, and we turn in all our information. So they get, and we tell them how many smallmouth bass were caught, how many largemouth bass were caught, how many fish died, because sometimes you get a little mortality at the weigh-ins where they just, you have to bring back a dead fish, you get a pound penalty, but how many were released, how many, died, and that way they have a good idea of the fishery all over the state. So that's been a really positive thing too.
Good. But that's awesome, because you're giving them a kind of a running total as your tournaments go, and then they can start to see if it's overfished, underfished. Actually, they're probably also going to look to see your mortality rate for being a catch and release tournament.
Right.
It's like,
yes,
well, okay, something's up, right? But no, that's really cool.
Kind of like a mandatory gear check.
Oh,
just.
I had to throw that in there.
Hey, you said that, not me.
Had to throw that in there.
Yeah.
No, that's cool though that they do that, because it gives them some real hard information.
Absolutely,
it does. Yeah, I think they've really benefited from it, and it's kind of good. Kind of keeps the tournaments from crisscrossing each other. Some of these lakes get overfished, but you look at Kent Lake. It's the most popular lake. It's the most hardest fish. There's probably a tournament there every weekend. But week in and week out, it takes 20 pounds to win there. So we're not hurting the fisheries at all. Even with all the chemicals and spray that the homeowners put into the lakes, killing the weeds, these fish seem to be finding a way. And the lakes are fishing stronger than ever. I mean, there are some lakes, it's cyclical, like Woodland Lake here in Brighton. That was down for a year or two where the weights weren't real that good. But last year, you know, if you weren't bringing 16, 17 pounds back on a Saturday, you weren't going to sniff it. You know, you weren't going to win. And so that, you know, you see lakes. I've only been doing this 5 years. The guys that have been doing it longer than me, they've really seen the cycles of some of these lakes. You know, where, you know, for 10 years in a row, maybe it takes 18 pounds to win on a Saturday, and then maybe for a few years you just need to bring 15 pounds in to win. So it's cyclical, but I mean, right now, you know, the lakes that fish big are still fishing pretty big.
All right, cool. All right. You know what? We're coming up to our next break. How about we break off and we'll come back for our last segment of the show, and we'll see what we've got to talk about.
All right, sounds good. We'll be right back after this.
Acceleration is part of PSE's DNA. PSE pioneered the speed movement. Now they've developed the vapor category to help you find the most powerful bows on the market to fit you.
High speed equates to intense power and building the momentum you need to be successful. Are you a vapor shooter? Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back. Last segment of the show. And
again, if you don't watch the show and you're listening to the podcast, you got to go back and talk about what we talked about here. The non-recorded
in the break,
in the break, because you know when you have somebody's wanting to impose penalties on somebody for recharging, and then you have somebody's dad show up with a comment, then you find out the real story. It's like, wow,
oh yeah,
Ken, they're busting your chops, man.
They are all over you, Ken.
Wow.
Better him than us. But anyways, okay, so we're heading into June. You've got some tournaments coming up.
Yep.
What about let's come off the water for a little bit. This is the last segment of the show, so we can kind of talk about a little deer hunting. Why not? Right?
Sure.
You've got some cameras out there, right?
Yep.
Okay, so you're going to be pulling pics, and we'll talk about those when you get them and see what you got starting to brew out there. Have you been? Do you put in any food plots or anything like that, or stuff like that?
You know, I did. I have in the past. You know, like I said, I share 37 acres with 5 other guys, and I had a little patch that the homeowner was kind enough to let me food plot, and I did that, and I had some limited success. But, you know, what happened with that is the first time I put in the brassicas, and they came in, and it was very small. It was maybe a quarter of an acre food plot, okay, and they came in September, and I planted it late July, August, something like that, and they ate all the tops. I mean, they just mowed the tops right down. And then they had no reason to come in there in October and November because all the tops were gone, and they never came back in December for the bulbs. So I said, okay. So the next year I tried clover, and they were kind of in the clover a little bit, but not that much, really. I didn't have that many deer in the clover. I was still shooting. I'd end up doing a bait pile in my food plot, and I'd shoot deer on a bait pile in my food plot, which I thought was kind of ironic. But I have had very limited success. But yes, to answer your question, I have fooled around with some food plots. But go ahead.
Deer can be finicky like that. Like you can go and plant clover, but they won't touch it. I got that up at my place.
It's seasonal.
Yeah. It's very seasonal, especially brassicas, and his got exactly what happened to you.
Oh, yeah, they get mowed down to nothing.
So basically, if you don't put a fence around it, it ain't going to get up there to maturity, right?
Right.
And so, you know, especially brassicas, I think the weather has to turn on it to the palate.
You got to get the frost that way pulls that sugars up into the leaves.
Right. So, you know, and the bait pile thing is that's kind of funny, too, because I used one year. Well,
the UP you can use it this year. Down here you can't.
Nope.
Right.
One year I used a bag. I got a bag of apples, which are typically red, but these were I think they were, I want to say green, maybe green or yellow. They didn't touch them. I don't know why. It was just one of those things. But you know, you throw sugar beets out there, and they're out there eating them.
Right.
But yeah, so I just wonder if you were going to be planting this year, or you're going to not plant.
No, I'm not. You know, last year I'm not, because I'm actually not hunting that spot anymore. that was kind of a more in the woods spot that I had a clearing. The past 2 years, I've really transitioned to hunting in swamps and really thick bedding area. I've really kind of 180'd my whole hunting style.
Okay.
And I started hunting from a saddle, and I last year was the first time in 17 years of deer hunting that I didn't use bait one time last year. I totally did away with it. I just started, kind of hunting deer trails in or very close to their bedding areas. And I seen more deer last year in my 17 years, and I had more close calls last year than I have ever had in 17 years of hunting. As soon as I stopped hunting bait and started hunting by the bedding areas, it was just night and day difference in the amount of activity I seen. So and I had a close call. I missed the buck last year, and so I've really been encouraged about what I've seen last year, and I'm looking forward to diving in this year again.
It's funny. You talk about the use of bait or not baiting. Up where we're at, we haven't been able to use bait since 2000, 2002.
It's been a while.
Whenever they outlawed it up in the northeast part of the state. And it forces you to hunt differently. It forces you, I think, to become a better hunter.
Yes.
Because you're not relying on the interaction of something pulling the deer in. You got to go find them, set up on them, and then try to make a shot. So.
Yeah, and before, I thought I was, and I'm not bashing anyone who use bait, but right. This is what I did for 17 years, okay? You go in the woods, here's a deer run on the edge of the swamp, here's a deer run coming through the woods, let's put a bait pile right next to the deer run. Mm-hmm. And don't get me, I've shot a lot of deer doing that. Mm-hmm. Nothing big, but I've shot multiple deer in a season many times doing that. But there's been also years where I'm just spinning my wheels. They're coming in at night, mm-hmm. and they're eating the bait, and I've gone whole seasons without even seeing a deer over bait. And that happened to me 2 years in a row. And finally I said, that's it. I'm done with this. I got tired of hauling it in and buying it, blah, blah, blah. And so far it's been a good move. So we'll see.
Yeah. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. The more you do it, the more interaction with game you're going to have. Because like I said, it forces you to go deeper. It forces you to scout more. And I think you have a lot more interaction with bigger bucks that way anyway.
Right.
Yeah. It's been really cool.
Yeah, right. You've seen the change in it, and you actually missed a buck that you said. And I think, I know for myself, the problem I usually have is probably exactly what you guys have as well, is once it starts coming up and they find it, they chow. That's why I definitely throwing the rye down to get that up, to hide it.
Yeah. Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, and I know there's things, I didn't know what I was doing. I just I researched a little bit. I didn't do a soil test, this or that, and it wasn't a big piece of land. I said, you know what, until I have enough land where I could really do this correctly, I'd rather, just not do it. The bait suckered me back in, and once I shot a doe off a bait pile in my food plot, I'm like, well, I'm not doing this again.
Right? And that's the thing. It's so much, especially trial and error, and where you were hunting, and I know where I'm hunting up in the UP, the winters get really harsh, so I'm trying to figure out a way to get the food plot to stay later for them.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I think I got to go with the electrified fence type deal.
Yep.
And then just let it grow, and then October 1st when I'm up there, pull it off.
Yep.
And then let them at it. But, I just wanted to check out with what you had planned for this upcoming deer season. We still got a couple months away. You'll be bow hunting. And then gun season.
And I tell you what, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I wake up real early in the morning in the summertime drinking coffee, I get that itch for deer hunting. I don't know what it is, but it really overcame me the other day, and I spent the whole day thinking about hunting season. So I'm already, my wheels are already, even though I am talking about bass fishing, believe me, I cannot wait for deer hunting season.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of deer hunting and bow hunting, do you shoot your bow a lot during this time of the year, or does the fishing take up most of that time?
I'm embarrassed to say I don't shoot. I'm definitely the guy that pulls it out late August. I know that's not right. I know that's not, what you should do, but that's fishing. It totally consumes I'll probably pull it out in July once or twice just to make sure the sight is still good. Mm-hmm. But mid to late August is, really where my brain starts to switch, and I'll start shooting it. I shoot every night, late summer. I'll shoot every night for a month and a half leading up to season. But I don't shoot year round like I should. I wish I did.
Well, we're going to have to get them over to Jim's.
What it boils down to is there's only 24 hours in a day.
That too.
You've got all these different things you want to do outdoors, and you've got to pick your poison. Uh-oh, I think we lost them.
There you go.
Yeah, we lost our connection. Well,
and that was Ken, by the way.
Yep. Yeah, let's just cut back over here to see if he does dial back in here. I bet his phone signal... Oh, there he is. Wait. No, that's not him.
That's not him.
I'm looking at the live feed.
You're looking at the live feed.
Well, we've lost him here in the last couple minutes of the show.
Right.
If you can hear us, Ken, we'll go ahead and let you sign off, and Danny and I...
We'll be talking.
We'll wrap up the rest of the show.
And you know what? As that happens, we're looking at the poll, and I was just about to say one was going to win.
Yeah, and it's tied up now.
It's tied at 43% from shore to boat.
Yep. So our poll tonight, where you prefer to fish, from shore, from a boat, or do you wade in the stream? And the wade in the stream is 14%, and the other two are 43%. So
and Ron Moses is probably going to give him a double minor for that one.
Yeah, that's probably like illegal procedure or something like that.
Clipping.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Ron Moses, 2-minute penalty for the phone dying.
Right. That's good stuff.
Well,
that's what happens during live interviews, you know?
And tell you the truth, Ron, having him on, he probably didn't know how much the Skype was going to drain his phone.
Yep.
So next time, I bet you he's going to have an extension cord pulling it to keep it on the charge.
When I'm doing stuff here, I'm tethered, you know.
Mine's tethered.
That's the way. And then the other monitor, the little iPad here that I monitor with, that's fully charged, because this stuff takes a toll on your batteries.
And it's one thing we learned here is to just roll with it and find out what's going on.
You have to. Well, you know what? We got a little time here. We'll finish up here with something that I did yesterday.
Actually, we started Thursday. Matter of fact, we posted the live video that we were at Jim's, and Jim was heavily into the move. He had started at 7:30 in the morning. It was 7:30 at night, and had 2 trailers, loading them up, moving them over, loading up, moving.
And your truck was full.
My truck was full, and so you went back over there on Saturday, and I see you were helping out in the shooting lanes.
Yeah, we worked on the range at least that's where I was at. There's people all over working.
Right.
But they sent me over to the range, and when we arrived, you can see they've got 4 bales set up on the wall down there. That's the new wall at the end of the range. And so we started working and setting up baffles on top here. And let me go to this next pick here. That's the entire range. It's 20 yards, 10 lanes wide. And
20 yards to the one marker, you might be able to pull out 22 I'm just thinking if you step back to the wall.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a 20-yard range, 10 lanes.
And when we got done towards the end of the day, we had the top baffle up on it, the bottom baffle's all set, and got the range cleaned up and looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's looking good. And you know, he's going to try to get open as soon as he can. He was trying to, kind of what he was planning on doing is trying to open up the pro shop first.
Yep.
And then have the range follow within a week or two.
Right.
Because he wants to get the doors open. And then come Bow Fest, whenever he decides to have that, it looks like August time frame, it's going to be a grand opening / Bow Fest.
Yep.
So, he's excited. He is really excited to see that range. He's excited to get those targets up. I'm excited for him because it'll be enjoyable just to stop in, maybe shoot with him a little bit.
Absolutely.
You know, and see how he's doing. And
he's got to get one more bale for the back there of the wall. And once we get that last bale up, we put a couple little boards up that's got to be finished up, and that range will be ready to rock.
Yeah, Ron, that is 10 lanes. You're right. The pick doesn't do it justice.
It's 22 feet wide, and on a standard archery range, a shooting lane is 2 feet wide.
Yes, literally 2 feet wide. We saw that at Oakland, and we were like, man, you shoot this lane, you were like right next to the wall. And then we noticed the light switch had a little protector on it.
Because somebody had shot the flipper off the light switch.
That's what I'm thinking. So
but you're literally, nose to tail. When we're shooting.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I shot on the same line all the time.
Yep.
And I mean, literally, we were nose to tail.
Yep, exactly. And so he's got 10 lanes in there, Ron, and it's on league night it could get pretty tight, but it's legal.
Yep.
It's the way they do it.
Yep.
And so it'll be fun in there to get that finished and and hopefully we'll be coming live from there.
Yeah, that's the plan, hopefully, too, is that we can do some live events over there as well. I'm really looking forward to be able to shoot leagues over there. So
I'm just looking forward to when we have some time on our hands to
just go shoot.
Hey, you know what? I just want to shoot for an hour. You know, I've done that at other places, but this is so close. We can just kind of say, hey, you know, if it's not a gym night, you want to go shoot. Hey, let's do that. You know, maybe on our cardio night, our cardio be go pull a bull back.
Yep.
So.
No, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a nice place, and we'll keep you updated on that. But that's what I did yesterday. Spent some time over there while it was thundering and lightning and pouring down rain. And the wind was blowing. So
right, exactly. And I had a little adventure myself, unplanned.
The one today?
No, yesterday.
Oh, that was yesterday.
That was yesterday.
Okay, I thought it was today.
Well, first of all, the weather wasn't cooperating whatsoever to get my grass cut. He lied. But anyways, after that, got inside. Deb was going to take the dogs out back. She was going to refill the bird feeder, I think, was her main intention.
Okay.
So we usually let the dogs run in the woods. Just let them run, get their little business all taken care of out in the woods, whatever. Well, I was eating breakfast, and all of a sudden I heard basically yelling at the dogs, and no.
Uh-oh.
That's exact. I'm like, uh-oh. And I'm barefoot, and I go running out there looking, and my dogs are now busting through the woods. And my wife is behind them busting through the woods. And I'm like, I'm yelling at them to come back, and they're not listening. And so I said, okay, hold on. I got to get shoes on because I can't run through the woods barefoot.
Right.
So I get shoes on. And by that time, I started hearing, bah, bah. I'm like, oh, no. And I ran back out there. And what had happened was, actually, when I ran back out there, I was running into the woods, and I'm looking at a doe running at me.
Uh-oh.
I'm like, okay, I'm coming. Mm-hmm. And so now what happened? Right behind her, I mean, literally right inside the woods where we typically are, there was a fawn tucked in.
Okay.
My one dog picked up on it and was sniffing it. That was fine. So my other two dogs came over, it picked its head up, and then took off. They went after it.
Oh, you mean the doe, the deer?
Fawn took off.
Picked its head up. Okay.
Picked its head up, and they're like, fun on.
Right.
And they took off. The fawn took off. They went with it.
Okay.
And by that time, they lost all hearing.
Right.
And my one dog got to it, and they were kind of like, you know how they play? Mm-hmm. Well, that's what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, by now, I've got my shoes on, and I'm running back through the woods. I fell.
Oh, no.
I hit my head. I did something to one of my toes, which is now a beautiful black and blue.
Nice.
And I had a big old knot on my head. And then finally, the doe running at me had the look of, please help me. Mm-hmm. And then my dog went after her, and she took off. But I got him back.
Okay.
I'm like,
is everybody accounted for?
My dogs are. So I went back over there where the fawn was left.
Yeah.
And it was gone.
Okay.
So might have just got the little heebie-jeebies scared out of it. But, oh my gosh. What a...
adventurous evening?
I was cussing out my dogs left and right. We're going to have a little retraining session this week.
Okay.
Of how to listen. And it's going to be electric collar.
Yeah, all right. A little military style.
Oh, I'm going right to zap.
It's funny listening to the story, but I can understand your frustration. You know, I mean, last thing you want is your dogs tearing off after a fawn.
19 years. I've seen fawns, but she's never put them that close.
Right.
And I mean, it was literally, and you know, right inside my woods right there.
Right.
Behind my house.
Right.
Literally was right behind where I put the boat.
Yeah. Well, she knew it was safe.
Right.
You know?
No, she doesn't
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Question real quick. Do we know of any indoor crossbow ranges?
Here in Michigan?
Yeah, it'll be here in Michigan. They live down by my brother.
Oh.
I don't know of indoor range. You know what? Let's ask Jim.
We'll have to ask.
If anybody's out there. I know some targets can handle crossbow bolts.
Yeah.
Typically, they have to use a different target for it.
Right.
But that's not to say they might have one on hand and you can put up to use. But as far as indoor ranges, for crossbow specifically, I don't know of any.
You know, unfortunately, a lot of archery clubs and ranges frown on the use of crossbows in their targets.
Right.
Just because they are so the power on them is so heavy.
It chews them up.
Yeah.
So no, totally agree there. So if we hear anything, we'll pass it along.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we do for the indoor crossbow ranges.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's what my unadventure was yesterday. And so I sat there with an ice pack on my head and wondered why my foot started hurting. And well, today is black and blue. So.
Oh, jeez. Well, I tell you what, we're running up here close to the end of the show, so I said we go ahead and wrap it up for this evening. Thanks to Ken Scicluna for joining us tonight, talking fishing and a little bit of hunting.
And he'll be joining the page, so look for more from him.
Yeah, absolutely. Look more for him posting on the Up North Journal page throughout this summer and fall, leading into deer season and beyond. So if you guys are on the live stream, want to hang around for a little while, we'll hang on for a few minutes and take some questions.
Really quick, Jim Miller says Ed's Archery and Clio actually must allow it.
Okay, there you go. Ed's Archery and Clio allows crossbows on their range.
Yep.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Killer Miller.
So, but for the podcast portion, that'll do it for us this week, folks. We'll be back again next week. And don't forget, you can catch us in syndication at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on goodtalkradio.com. This episode was brought to you by PSE Archery,
Scentlock Technologies,
Scent Blocker,
Rambo Bikes,
Hunter's Blend Coffee,
Limb Walker Game Calls,
Stanislavski Releases,
Copper John Sights,
Easy Cut Outdoor Products,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Wind Sense Hunting Sense,
X-Stand Tree Stands,
Spot Shooters,
Gut Check Indicators,
and Packermax Cultipackers.
Thanks for listening, and join us again here next week. Until then, remember, as we always like to say, if you're out on the water or in the woods, shoot straight and be safe. Until next week on the Up North Journal.